Well, what a privilege to be here with y'all this morning. I interviewed here Memorial Day weekend in 1987, and there was a Student Center Director Search Committee, and they had made a firm commitment to each other. Larry had transitioned from the campus ministry to preaching here at 10th and Broad, and the commitment they made is the last thing we are going to do is hire some kid right out of ACU. Well, I was that kid right out of ACU. And I remain thankful to that group that chose to trust us. I think they realized that Jan was wise and that Jan would help things along. And I think Janet was actually expecting Shane that weekend that we interviewed here. So it's very memorable. And our time here was really just cherished time. We have always considered 10th and Broad to be home. So when we drove out here from Lubbock, we're like, well, it's time to come home. You know, we're going to come home and be at home and be with y'all. I preached in Granbury right at 20 years, and Sunset came and said, we need somebody who has a lot of experience. Translated, we need somebody that's old. And we want somebody with extensive congregational ministry experience to teach primarily practical ministry courses and to coordinate those that I'm not teaching. I'm coordinating with those instructors. So after 20 years in Granbury and after 37 years in congregational ministry, it's been a distinct change, and I've really enjoyed it. Those of us that serve on the staff at SIBI, we are like domestic missionaries. Sunset has never charged tuition for our students, so consequently, those of us on the staff, we have to get out and raise our support just like a missionary would. And so 10th and Broad as a church has invested in our support. We're very appreciative, and there's individuals here that have as well. So just very grateful for your partnership in ministry that began in 1987 and continues even today. My intent, as Shane mentioned, is to really focus on Celebration Sunday, and I'm going to focus primarily on the campus ministry out at Midwestern and the inherent value of campus ministry in general in 2025. I want to take us back just for a few moments, not to 1987. Let's go even further back. Let's go back to 1962. What was going on in our culture in 1962? In October of 1962, Johnny Carson hosted The Tonight Show for the first time. Also in 1962, the Beatles released their first hit single. That was 1962. And some of you recall the Jetsons. Do y'all remember watching the Jetsons, the cool futuristic cartoons? I watched that when I was a kid. The Jetsons also premiered in 1962. But more importantly, while those cultural events were unfolding in the country, something of far more consequence was occurring. The 10th and Broad Church of Christ decided to construct what was called then a Bible chair facility, where the Mustangs for Christ, that building that's housed right there across the street from the campus, it was called the Bible Chair in 1962. And now we pause for just a moment and realize 63 years later, the church here remains committed to campus ministry, remains committed to those students out there at Midwestern. I think you're to be committed for such a long time commitment to students because that's not characteristic of all churches. There were a lot of Bible chair ministries that were begun during that general time frame in the 60s and even into the 70s as well. But a lot of churches, for a number of reasons, are no longer committed to campus ministry. There are huge universities that no longer have a representation from Churches of Christ on their campus. So you are definitely commended for being so consistent over the years. So I teach college-age students at SIBI. I ran the statistics. 80% of my students that I have in the classroom would be considered a part of Gen Z. So they were born somewhere after 1996, between 1996 and 2013. Those that are born from 2013 forward are called the Alpha generation, and I think they're going to look even different as they enter adulthood. So I've got all these cool Gen Z students who keep me very current and keep me very young in my thinking as well. And these are all students that want to serve in ministry. So I would say they're a very unique niche of Gen Z. They're enthusiastic. They're excited about, in some cases, serving overseas. A lot of them will serve churches right here at our own back door. But they're really a neat bunch. But let me pause for a moment and tell you about an encounter I had 2 weeks ago on a Friday night with another group of students. These are university students at Texas Tech University in Lubbock. Tech on the Lubbock campus had a record enrollment this year in fall 2025, just right under 40,000 students that are on the Tech campus there in Lubbock. When I was at Tech, I started at Tech as a freshman in 1980. I think there were around 28,000 students at that time. So one of the things that I do just to keep me current in ministry and also to fulfill a calling that I've been a part of since here in Wichita Falls, I serve part-time. I have a little part-time job working for the Lubbock Police Department on the Victim Services Crisis Intervention Team. There are a group of 26 of us, all of us having mental health training, a lot of licensed professional counselors and social workers. We work in partnerships as a team. The city gives us a car, a radio, and an in-car computer and cuts us loose on a Friday night so you can go wherever you want to go from 6 o'clock in the evening until 2:30 in the morning. Now, we work additional shifts other than Friday, but I characteristically should sign up for Friday night shifts. So a couple of weeks ago on a Friday night, I'm working crisis team, and my partner says, why don't we just park the car on Broadway just east of the Tech campus and get out and walk? It's a pretty evening because there's a lot of people out. And I said, yeah, sounds great. We just can't get too far from the car in case we get a call. We respond to calls as needed for all kinds of crisis events, and as you can well imagine, Friday nights characteristically are very, very busy. So we got and walked, and there were literally dozens upon dozens of Tech students that are frequenting the bars that are right adjacent to the university campus. And so here I am walking, I'm 63 years old, and I'm walking among all these students. And for some reason, they felt so young to me. These kids, to me, they look like they're 12. And I'm sure they're all 21. Nobody's being served under 21. You know they're all 21. So just this sense of being very touched on one point and overwhelmed on another point. And as I walked and as I encountered these students and as I just observed everything that was going on, one particular scripture came to mind. Matthew chapter 9, verses 35 through 38. And here's what the text says. Jesus went through all the towns and villages, teaching in their synagogues, proclaiming the good news of the kingdom, and healing every disease and sickness. When he saw the crowds, he had compassion on them because they were harassed and helpless like sheep without a shepherd. Then he said to his disciples, the harvest is plentiful, but the workers are few. Ask the Lord of the harvest, therefore, to send out workers into his harvest field. And as we completed the shift and worked till about 3 o'clock that morning, that passage kept coming to mind again and again. These students out partying on a Friday night were indeed harassed and helpless like sheep without a shepherd. And it occurred to me, we have so much opportunity right here at our back door to reach out to 40,000 students. What an opportunity to touch people with the gospel. We're blessed to have Jeremy Aaron right there at Sunset reaching out to students. He's doing a really, really good job. Not only has the Tech campus, but also has Lubbock Christian University, Wayland Baptist University, and South Plains College as well. So you put all these students together. It's a lot of responsibility, and it's a lot of opportunity as well. But here's the truth. In 1962, you sent out workers in the harvest field and constructed this really nice facility right adjacent to the campus at Midwestern. And as I duly noted, you are still sending workers today in 2025. Now, I hate to be the bearer of bad news this morning. Don't we need to have good news on a Sunday morning? But I hate to be the bearer of bad news. Are you ready? The world has changed since 1962. Are you all aware of that? Are you all aware that the world has changed since 1962? And certainly, the world of college students has changed dramatically since 1962. Let me give you a few examples. Researcher Jonathan Haidt, he wrote a book entitled The Anxious Generation. And here's what Haidt says in that book. He notes, and I quote, "Major depression among teens has increased 150% from the time period of 2004 to 2020. So these statistics were done pre-COVID, all those things that were associated with the pandemic. So from 2004 to 2020, major depression among teens has increased 150%. He attributes such a rise to what he refers to as the Great Rewiring. And I don't think I need to spell out to you what the Great Rewiring is. You know exactly what the Great Rewiring is. We live in a world of smartphones, and we live in a world of social media and all the things that go along with such cultural shifts over the last several years. Haidt additionally notes that anxiety among college students increased from 2008 to 2018 by 134%. I've lived that serving on the crisis team. I see that every single time I work a shift in particular. Suicide rates among college students, unfortunately, is very high. And again, I see that work every shift without a doubt. Every single shift, we will have at least one or two university-age students that we are having what we would refer to as a suicide threat, that we are working with these students. Our students right here at Midwestern, my students at Tech, my students at SIBI, are influenced by a world of Instagram and TikTok and things that I'm not even aware of yet. The world moves slightly faster than it did in 1962. Family life is different than it was in 1962. In my Introduction to Ministry Study course, I just wanted to get a feel for where the students were grammatically speaking, and their ability to write, just to kind of get a gauge of that. So I made an assignment. I want you to write a spiritual autobiography. Okay, so tell me your faith story. I want to hear, did you grow up in church? Who was influential in your life? Your faith community. I want to hear all those things. Anything that contributed to your faith journey, write a spiritual autobiography. And I want it to be about 3 to 5 pages, double-spaced type, just to see how well you can write. So it's a little sneaky. It's kind of a sneaky way of seeing how good their grammar was in a written paper. What I got was a surprise. A couple of surprises, actually. For the most part, they did pretty well, grammatically speaking. But a greater surprise was reading some of these autobiographies. I had to stop because some of them made me so incredibly emotional reading their stories of irresponsible parents, kids being raised by grandparents. One student who noted that his family moved to Colorado because they legalized marijuana in Colorado, and his dad would sit around and smoke weed and play video games all day. That was the home that this student I have grew up in. And I had this completely different view of these students that I'm interacting with in the classroom every single day. And it was a reality. It's not the world that I grew up in the 60s and the 70s. But guess what? Here's the good news. This is, in my estimation, the most exciting time ever to be involved in campus ministry. There are a lot of statistics being revealed that are very current regarding trends in Gen Z. So I'm going to share with you just a synopsis of an article that was released in USA Today, of all sources. And here's a quick summary of that article. Here's the first point. For 3 decades, the percentage of Americans who identify as Christians has steadily declined, a trend confirmed by countless studies. Okay, that's been true. That's been the negative news. We've heard that over and over and over. It's kind of a downer, is it not? The dominant religious storyline in recent decades has been the rise of the nuns. Those who wrote, religious affiliation, I have none. There's really none at all. So just count me as a nun. I kind of feel like I'm somewhere out here in no man's land. And yet, overall, at this point in time in 2025, the younger generations are more spiritually curious. I would say, in response to what this journalist has stated in USA Today, that is understatement. The younger generations are very curious spiritually. It's an extremely positive trend, and I've seen things change even in the last 5 years. There's been a fairly dramatic shift. A lot of you may be familiar with the Barna Research Group. They've released some things even as recently as this past spring. And the Barna Research Group reports that most Gen Z teens are more interested in learning about Jesus, with younger cohorts leading in the way in the growth of new commitments. Again, it's an understatement. There is this sense of revival going on among members of Gen Z, this youngest adult generation. And it's not only going on in this country, but it's also going on in England, of all places. There is a shift, a return to churches in England. And you know where the largest percentage is being found is in young adult males in England are returning to church. There is a revival going on right here at our own back door. And so this chaos and instability of the last few years, as people returning to age-old questions like, where did I come from, and why is the world so messed up, and where can we find hope? And they're searching for answers. Even among those students on Broadway, right east of the Tech campus, when we were out walking that Friday night, out partying, doing their thing, all with their friends, all this kind of stuff, have their nose stuck in their phone in some cases, they're searching. And they're asking very significant questions. Well, there's another reason that this is an exciting time to be involved in campus ministry. And again, I live this every single day. Students at this point in time are far more open to intergenerational community, intergenerational friendships than they've ever been before. For young adults, age is not a hindrance. My 19-year-old students will talk to me. I'm 63 years old. They'll talk to me like I'm a real human being. And I find out even on crisis team, when we're out in the streets working with people, the young ones, they'll talk to you. They talk to you like, they really want to know you and they really want to get to know you. I live this every single day, and it's true. I talked to Spencer. Spencer and Bethany, I believe, are on a retreat with the students this weekend. But I had a brief interchange with Spencer prior to being here today, and here's what he said. I want to quote what he said. He said, Bethany spoke with some new students recently who said, and this is where I think it gets interesting, she said the students weren't looking for community. They felt like they could find that anywhere. Instead, what they longed for was mentorship and discipleship into a way of life that stands apart from what other voices are offering. I believe that is spot on accurate, and that has been my experience as well. Spencer went on to say, one thing that felt unique this semester is how the students are expressing their desire for something deeper. Many have said they don't want to just go through the motions. They recognize that there's real meaning out there, But with so many competing voices, they're hesitant about whom to trust. We must be the people they can trust.
Amen.
So I'm going to ask for all of us this morning, what does it mean for churches that are committed to campus ministry? The 10th and Broad Church of Christ has been committed to campus ministry since 1962. What does it mean? I think the first thought is just a reminder, there is so much opportunity. There's so much opportunity, and you don't even have to leave the city limits of Wichita Falls. You just got to drive a few miles out here to Midwestern. And I think of what Jesus said in Matthew chapter 5, verses 14 and 16. He said, "You are the light of the world. A town built on a hill cannot be hidden. Neither do people light a lamp and put it under a bowl. Instead, they put it on its stand. It gives light to everyone in the house. In the same way, let your light shine before others that they may see your good deeds and glorify your Father in heaven." So if there's so much opportunity, then we need to ask ourselves some really important questions. First of all, what is our spiritual condition? Yeah, I can get out and walk on Broadway Street on a Friday night and interact with students that are partying up over the weekend, and I can walk away and say, yeah, they're harassed and helpless like sheep without a shepherd. But where am I? I'm a mature adult, at least in theory. I'm a mature adult. What do I have to offer? Spiritually speaking, what am I bringing to the table for the next generation? Not only the students that I'm interacting with in the classroom, but younger adults that I'm going to encounter in all sorts of contexts. And what about you? When these students come on a Sunday morning, what will they find from you? Or if you have an opportunity to interact with them in another context, on their turf, so to speak, what are they going to experience? What will university students find as they interact with us? The opportunity is great, but I don't think the responsibility could possibly be any greater than it is at this very moment. Let's embrace it. There are so many young ones harassed and helpless like sheep without a shepherd. Let's ask the Lord of the harvest to send us into his harvest